it does look natural having that Intercontinental Championship around your waist.
It's been glued to him for
forever. Well, I know. Yeah, I mean, and now you're getting it. And I'm glad you brought that up, Sam, because now you're very close to having the longest run as Intercontinental Champion. When you look at the history of that championship title and what you've been able to do, that's a pretty great accomplishment.
Yeah, it definitely is, right? When I think about my younger self, when I started out training and stuff like that, all the things that happened in the last years are like, I don't know, unimaginable, really, right? But yeah, it's been a great ride. I'm in the midst of it, so it's like hard to judge it, like you mentioned it, where it's like a great accomplishment. That's a great accomplishment, because I'm so focused on what I'm doing and keeping that high level up, if that makes sense. So I guess the real enjoyment of those accomplishments, they're gonna come once I have more time again, and I can, sit back and maybe rewatch it and enjoy it.
What's it like for you, who, like, you're this performer who most of your talking, most of your explanation happens in the ring, bell to bell. Like, that's where the story is told.
Yeah.
And historically, WWE is a place where a lot of that is done on microphones. A lot of that is done before. You kind of have to almost condition this fan base to go, nope, all the attention happens bell to bell.
Yeah.
And you've succeeded at it. Is that something that you gave credence to before you got to the main roster, or did you just figure this will come naturally?
I think it's because, so when I started out, obviously you watch WWE when you're young and stuff like that. And when I started out training, my coach was still like, he wrestled under Otto Wanz still in Vienna at the tournament. So his coaching was mostly just, here's this holds, here's that holds, and it was all of that. Here's that strike. Didn't hit the ropes for the first 6 months or something like that. It was all second thought. First of all, we have to get the basics down and stuff like that. And I enjoyed it. I think for me that would make sense. And then I saw everybody on the events we did, everybody was kind of like trying to be like a WWE wrestler. And in German, that translates awfully. I can tell you that.
Really?
The German language is not made to be loud and shout out and be a little bit cheesy sometimes, if that makes sense. So it was like, I gotta do something different. And then I was interested in Japanese wrestling, and I was like, okay, that's more sports based. Like in Europe, people are like, they like sports more than too much entertainment. So I try to focus on that, and I enjoyed it, and I studied it a lot. And I also try, okay, I want to tell a story from when the bell rings to the finish, and try to be as good at it as possible. And yeah.
I recently made a comparison to you with another performer that's up there, was one of the greatest of all time, and that's Randy Orton. And the reason I made the comparison was because of this. When Randy Orton is in the ring, everything he does has purpose. There's meaning behind everything he does. It's the same thing with you. Obviously, in the world of the WWE, we see a lot of wrestlers give chops. When you give a chop, sir, it's a lot different than we normally see it. There's meaning behind it. It's like everything you do is with the purpose of winning the match. Yeah. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's different than what we're normally see in the world of sports entertainment.
It is. I mean, thank you for that comparison. I think Randy's one of the best ever. So it's very charming. But I think it is. I think that's right. It's how you use the things you do. That's the most important thing. I think a lot of wrestlers think about it too much as like, I gotta do this spectacular stuff or this crazy maneuver to impress everybody's. Like a regular strike won't get you that reaction or something like that. But if you treat it like that from the beginning, and if you don't present it in a way that it's as important, it's never gonna be perceived that. Mm-hmm. And we saw some guys like it. I always thought, if you think back, like Santino Marella got his hand in his sock over. It was a deadly weapon back then, right?
Yes.
He just used it like that. So, and I think that goes with a lot of things in wrestling. If you look at Sami Zayn's match with the Jackass crew.
Right.
He just used whatever the Jackass crew had to offer. He just treated it as like, okay, that's their offense.
And is that,
if that makes sense, right?
Yes, it does. I think that was one of my favorite matches of that year's WrestleMania. I thought it was
very entertaining.
It was so entertaining. Yeah. Do you think that sometimes, like, somewhere, now's not the time for it, but do you go, okay, down the road as Gunther as an entity continues to evolve, there is going to be a place for Gunther in a Jackass style match there, or is that something that you kind of see yourself staying away from?
I mean, we'll see what the future brings. I had
Right.
a few oddball occasions where I did something in my career that was a little bit out of this serious competitive wrestling stuff, and it usually worked really well. I think a good example, like if it's done the right way, there's a place and time for almost everything in wrestling. If you look at like DDT in Japan, that promotion is a good example. They have all that goofy stuff happening throughout the show, and then the finish of the show is a super serious world championship match, and everybody treats it that way because it's just different styles and it's different forms of entertainment, really.
And that's the beauty of pro wrestling. Sam and I doing this show together today, the way that I grew up loving the sport is completely different than the way Sam grew up and watched it. Like, I think it's fair in saying you're more of the sports entertainment side, and I'm more of like the old school territory, Japan style of pro wrestling. But both of us together admire what you're doing and understand what you're doing. And I think it shows with the Intercontinental Championship. Like, they always say that the championship can make a performer or the performer can make the championship. I think you're a great example of you have been able to perceive and look at this championship in a completely different way. That's got to make you proud that now with that championship attached to you, that people look at that Intercontinental Championship differently.
Oh, it makes me very proud. And that it is the same with the NXT UK title before. It was something where, okay, when I'm able to win the title, I'm going to make it the best run I can possibly make it. And the ones, like you said, I believe in that. Like, the title doesn't make the man; it's the man that makes the title. I really believe in that, and and obviously, it makes me very proud because, like I said, when I was a child, I watched Shawn and Bret and whoever being the Intercontinental Champion. That I would be on some sort of lists or whatever they have going on with the longest reigns and something with those guys. That's absolutely crazy, and I'm doing it my way. That makes sense. And I'm doing it my way. And that's the fact, I think, that makes me the most proud. That I adapted, I learned, I evolved, but I never changed what I think was right for me to do. And I think that makes me proud.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that 100%. I think what puts you on the list with like a Shawn and a Bret is not just the length of the reign, but also a consistency. Like a Shawn Michaels match is always going to be a Shawn Michaels match. There are no nights off. A Bret match is always going to be a Bret match. Two totally different things. No nights off. Gunther is always going to give you a Gunther match, which to me is nuts. Because, I mean, you brought up the NXT UK title run, and it's like you can go back and think about, like, I mean, the match with Ilya is like still, I think, one that is in people's heads. But since then, every single time you can go to Raw this week with Gable, and like you're having these knockdown, drag out matches every single time you go up to bat. Is there ever a point where you're like, oh my God, I hope I get a couple weeks off after that one? Or are you ready to just get back in?
I mean, I have to get back in. Obviously, sometimes when some things rack up, you get like a little bit, could do with a break.
Fatigue.
Yeah. But that's just part of it. There's nothing to complain about. I think that's the deal when you get into the sport and you want to do it. And for me, it was always important. I always wanted to be the guy when I walk to the ring, people go like, "Oh shit, now it's on. It's on. Now it's real."
Yes. Yeah.
And Sam just mentioned like a Gunther match. It's funny when I knew you as Walter and they changed the name. I was so angry when that happened. I was like,
of course you were. You were one of those guys.
I was.
You were one of those guys.
I was one of those guys. But then it's amazing as time
of course
has gone on. Walter who? Like, you took that name, which is difficult to do when you have an audience that recognize you by this label and then they completely change it. It's like, all right, now I have to almost start from scratch. And now you have done such great things that is completely in the past and they know you by this name.
Yeah, the transition has been quite smooth, I gotta say. And at the end of the day, it's not that much of a change. It was just the name. The rest of the person didn't really change. My coat had a different color, which was a good step. I always wanted to stick with black, just basic, but different colors now. I enjoyed it too. It looks good on me, I think. But
got some action figures.
Yeah, that's true as well. But otherwise, it wasn't that much of a big change. But I always like get that when people are used to something, change often doesn't get perceived very positively. At the end, like I said, it wasn't that much, and yeah, I'm glad I did it because at the end of the day, Gunther has made me more money than Walter ever did before.
Yeah.
So I cannot be sad about it.
What is that like? I mean, because you talked about like being a fan growing up and comparing yourself to some of these people that you watched because you're such a serious person on television and in the ring. Do you like flip out when the Gunther action figure comes out and you're looking at yourself and you're like, oh, there I am, or is that not your thing?
No, I don't really flip out. I usually make sure once they get aired, I order a package for my parents, so for the family at home.
Let them flip out.
Sometimes it's a way bigger deal for them than how it feels for me in the moment, if that makes sense. But obviously I keep them. Like I always, sometimes when we get a chair and there's a picture on, like those special chairs from the PLEs and stuff, I have them sent to me. But I'm also not a person that puts much stuff up on the wall.
And I think that there is this fascination with you because again, the presentation is so serious that when we get even a little glimpse of what you might be like behind the camera, when there's a glimpse of Gunther dancing, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it was a big. I mean, yeah, I guess it's a surprise then, but there's obviously a different side to there's the profession, like the professional person that is me, and obviously there's the private person that is me, and sometimes I think they don't have that much in common. But I think that's a healthy balance, I think.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much I enjoy it, and it doesn't matter how much it means to me. It is my profession, and we all gotta have a different side of life that has nothing to do with that. And I really try to not build or identify myself in life in general through who I am in the ring, because that's going to end at some
Very
point.
healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, because a person is more than just what they do for a living. There's so many facets of who they are.
Yes.
And you have to be balanced. And it sounds like you are. This has been a whirlwind for you this last year, inside the ring, outside the ring. You're somebody now that's going to be recognized walking down the street. You're today, for example, so many people want to interview you, talk to you. How has that transition been for you?
That's the one part. Obviously, it gives you a little bit of a not a buzz, but it's like, oh, all those people know you. Like, what the hell is going on? But
It's kind of cool.
It's kind of cool, but on the other hand, that's nothing I ever wanted to achieve. Like being famous is something I'm zero interested in.
Yeah.
There's like I never wanted it. Go somewhere, it's like, oh, it's that guy and blah 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 blah. But it's part of it, obviously, because especially on the main roster, we're on TV every week.
You're superstars.
I love.
Yeah,
we are superstars.
Yeah.
I really don't like to say that about myself. I gotta be honest, but we are at the end of the day. We're in the public eye, and yeah, that's part of the job.
Yeah.
Do you and let's just use this weekend as an example. Is there points like in a match or before a match where you look around and you see a stadium full of people and you kind of like take in the moment and enjoy the moment?
Yeah, when I can, I'll try to get like a sneak peek and see how the venue looks full before I go out. But I try to be very focused. At the end of the day, and it might sound super numb or playing it down. That's not what I want to do. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if there's 50 people or a stadium. What I have to do my job doesn't change. It's still the same. I still gotta, if that makes sense for you guys.
Absolutely.
So I try to not get carried away by other things. Obviously, the reception in like a big stadium is something completely different than in like a regular venue. That kind of energy you don't really feel maybe once or twice a year when you get the chance to be on the events we do that are in a stadium. And that's a very special feeling. But on the other hand, I had so many great memories where it was a room like this and it was totally packed and there was just a ring in the middle.
Yeah.
And it fulfilled my passion as much, if that makes sense. I think it's just the overall experience because let's say WrestleMania, I had my parents there, my wife was there, close friends were there that I know since I started. And that's the thing that gives me more, I think, is like seeing how they perceive it, what it means for them to, like my parents, to come out there in Los Angeles and see me doing all of that. And them still remembering how I was like a young chubby kid going, I'm going to be a wrestler. You will see, blah, blah, blah. After I, whatever, get dropped out of school and didn't start apprenticeships and never finished it because I always wanted to wrestle. That's something that's beautiful to me. That's a big achievement, if that makes sense. Or yeah.
When does the focus start for you? Like when, like you said, you got to be focused on the task at hand, not worried about everything going on. And I think that's really obvious when you watch what you do in the ring.
Yeah.
How early in the day does that kind of change start to happen mentally? Is it right before you go out there, or is it earlier?
I think I can just go.
Just go.
It's fine.
That's great.
I don't listen to music before. I stretch a bit. I do my squats. I do my push-ups. I warm up my neck or something like that. And then when it's go time, it's go time. I'm excited. I want to win that match. And that's the thing. I literally switch in that mode. I want to win that match because that's how I want to act in the ring. I want to work towards the goal, and that is stay on the guy until he stays down.
Right.
That's all that matters for me. The moment with the audience, if it's there sporadically and I react to it or not, I decided out there. That's never a focus before. I just want to go out there and go like, okay, I gotta beat that guy.
He's got to lay down for 3 seconds. That's it.
That's it.
or pass out or tap or whatever. That's
We'll see if that happens again Saturday at SummerSlam. The Intercontinental Champion, thank you so much for the time. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
All right.
Pleasure.